How is Jesus and the Old Testament God different? Well, that's right. You also mentioned stoning, because I guess you think that because of the story of the woman caught in adultery in John,
Yeah.
that Jesus is like against it. I personally think you're misunderstanding the story. But let's look at it. The first thing to see, let me put this on the screen. The first thing that we need to see about this is that this right here, the earliest manuscripts that we have of John's gospel actually don't include the story of the woman caught in adultery. So it's possible that this story isn't even part of the gospel.
Huh?
Now the earliest manuscripts not including this doesn't mean it's not there. It just means that we lack super stupid early evidence that it was in there, but that's because papyrus doesn't tend to last 2,000 years. But let's say that this story is legit. Let's see what it actually says. So they went each to his own house, but Jesus came or went to the Mount of Olives. Early in the morning, he came again to the temple. All the people came to him, and he sat down and taught them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery. And placing her in the midst, they said to him, Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. Now, in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. So what do you say? Now catch this. This they said to test him. Why? That they might have some charge to bring against him, right? Because remember, Rome did not allow the nations that it had like subjugated to itself, to enact capital punishments. Like that was something only Rome could do. So they're trying to trap Jesus here. If Jesus says to do what the law of Moses says and stone her, they're going to run to Caesar and claim that Jesus is making himself out to be king. He just ordered an execution like a king would, and they're going to crush. They're going to try and trick Rome into crushing Jesus. If Jesus says don't stone her, they're going to run to all the synagogues and say that Jesus doesn't follow Torah.
So he's stuck between a rock and a hard place.
That is what they think. That is what they think. But in their haste to make a trap, they ended up trapping themselves. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. And as they continued to ask him, he stood up and said to them, Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her. And once more he bent down and wrote on the ground. But when they heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the older ones, and Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus stood up and said to her, Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? She said, No one, Lord. And Jesus said, Neither do I condemn you. Go. And from now on, sin no more. So he doesn't endorse the sin. He's definitely not in agreement with her committing adultery. But let's see what the Pharisees are talking about when they say that it says in the law. God tells me Leviticus 22:10 and Deuteronomy 22:22. So let's check those places out. Deuteronomy 22:22. And this is just the process of Bible study, right? You can't really know what a story is talking about until you know everything that story's referencing. Deuteronomy 22:22. If a man is found lying with the wife of another man, both of them shall die, the man who lay with the woman and the woman. So you shall purge the evil from Israel. Um, and then what was the other verse? Leviticus 20:10. Leviticus 20:10. If a man commits adultery with the wife of his neighbor, both the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. Okay, so is that what we have here? What does it say?
We just have the woman.
We just have the woman, right? But
Right.
listen, but what did they say? What they said was, or what it says in the text. No, they said it too in verse 4. They said to him, Teacher, this woman has been. I want you to catch this to catch their hypocrisy. Remember, you and I have been talking about hypocrisy a lot off air, just as a topic. My boy
Yes.
here is going to be teaching about hypocrisy. The day after this is recorded. So praise God for that. But look at what it says. What do they say? Teacher, this woman has been caught after the act of adultery? No, it
They're
says
caught in the act.
in the act of adultery. Now, last time I checked, Bradley, to be caught in the act of adultery needs at least 2 people.
Yeah, and if she was caught in the act, why are you spying on somebody else?
There you go. Now we're getting the questions, right? How did you know? How did you know if she was in the act of adults? I mean, unless dude was just putting it down good and she was just loud, or he was loud and they both were loud. I don't know how they caught this woman in the act of adultery.
Unless they were doing, unless there was no law saying you couldn't do it outside in front of the public. I don't know.
Well, I mean, there definitely were decency laws in ancient Israel for sure. So they're definitely doing this inside somewhere secret. So like, how do they know, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest point, they both need to be put to death if it's consensual adultery, right? Because
Yes.
non-consensual adultery is what we call rape. And victims are not put to death in the Old Testament for things that they were, victims of. They're victims, not culprits. So they ask him in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. So what do you say? They're so eager to trap Jesus that they just, they botch it. They grab the lady, bring him to Jesus, they misquote Moses, and so that's, the rock and the hard place, right? If Jesus commands capital punishment, he stays in accordance with the law, but they're going to tattletale to Rome. If he,
breaks the law.
If he breaks the law, they run to the synagogues and they can accuse Jesus of not following Torah.
Yeah.
The problem is, for them to create this situation, they themselves had to break the Torah.
What do you think?
And
Jesus
hang on, because technically, like him writing in the sand, actually, it's important. It's important, and it has to do with something back in Jeremiah. But I don't want you to miss the point, because him writing in the sand actually doesn't pertain to this point, which is his question to them. Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her. In other words, Jesus calls their bluff. All right, guys, if you think it would be lawful to execute her like this, then y'all do it.
Mm-hmm.
Then y'all do it. For 2 reasons. One, Jesus knows they don't really care about her issue. They're just using her issue as an excuse to come after him. And 2, they're not even doing it right. You don't have the man. You told me she was caught in the act of adultery, so where's the man?
Yeah.
Right? Jesus is not a chauvinist. He's not gonna hypocritically punish women for things and then let men off the hook scot-free.
Right. If you
And
caught them in the act, you need to grab them both by the ears or hair or what you want to do.
Right. And they didn't do that, which means that this entire scenario is invalid, which is why, and they know that. They know that because they know the Torah. They knew that Jesus had successfully dodged their trap, because now the trap has been reversed on them. If they execute her by stoning, then Jesus will tell them, you guys just broke the Torah.
Hypocrites.
I mean, they're hypocrites already, but they'd be like even deeper hypocrites.
If they went through with it. Yeah.
If they went through with it. And Jesus knew, and also if they did go through with it, then Jesus could tattle to Rome.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to give Jesus that power. So there's multiple reasons why they're not going to do it. And so they leave her, and because everyone has left her, there is now no one left to accuse her of the sin, which means that now there's no law to enact. And Jesus, being King of Israel, has the right to pardon who he wants.